Welcome to this channel of love stories that touch the heart. Before the story begins, click that subscribe button, or you'll miss the next chapter that might steal your heart. Sparkling Heart. Musical notes. Soft Korean-style background music begins, gentle rain and piano. Studio narrator. It was a cloudy morning in Seoul. The rain had been falling since dawn, wrapping the city in a silver mist. On the crowded street near Hanseong University, a girl ran, clutching her umbrella that kept turning inside out in the wind. Her name was Han Jae-woo, a quiet literature student who believed love only existed in novels. Studio narrator. She was late for her English class again. Inside that classroom waited Mr. Lee Min-ho, her professor. Calm, intelligent, the kind of man who could silence a noisy room with just one look. No one really knew him. They only admired him from afar. Studio narrator. Jae-woo reached the gate, breathless, her shoes soaked. As she crossed the courtyard, thunder rumbled above. Then, the impossible happened, she slipped. Books flew across the wet pavement. Studio sound FX. Soft splash, raindrops, heartbeat red. Studio Mr. Lee. Are you okay? Studio narrator. A deep, gentle voice cut through the rain. She looked up, and there he was, Mr. Lee Min-ho, standing over her, holding an umbrella. His dark coat was drenched, his glasses misted, yet his eyes were warm. Studio Jae-woo. I'm fine, sir. Studio narrator. He smiled faintly, kneeling to pick up her books. Next time, try not to race the rain, he said softly. The rain always wins. Her heart skipped a beat. For a second, the world seemed to stop, only the sound of raindrops and her heartbeat filling the air. Studio narrator. When their hands touched, a strange warmth spread through her chest. It was brief, almost nothing, but it changed everything. Studio Mr. Lee. See you in class, Miss Han. Studio narrator. He walked away, leaving her standing there beneath the rain, her umbrella trembling. She whispered to herself, "Why does my heart feel like this?" Musical notes, music rises, soft piano and wind chimes. Studio narrator. That moment under the rain was only the beginning. A story of love that shouldn't have happened. A secret hidden beneath falling cherry blossoms. Cherry blossom. Studio outro. If you felt the rain in your heart today, don't forget to subscribe and stay for Chapter 2, where whispers inside the classroom begin to sound a lot like love. Growing heart. Studio narrator. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled gently through the windows of Hanseong University, warming the empty hallways. Inside room 204, students gathered one by one, chatting softly before class began. At the front of the room, Mr. Lee Min-ho stood quietly, writing notes on the board. His handwriting was neat, elegant like him. He always wore the same black coat, and yet every time Jae-woo saw him, he looked different, unreachable. Studio narrator. Jae-woo sat in the second row, pretending to take notes, but her eyes, they never left him. Every time he spoke, his voice felt like a melody she couldn't forget. Studio Mr. Lee. Good morning, everyone. Today we'll discuss the meaning of love in literature. Studio narrator. The word love made Jae-woo's pen stop midair. Her heart thumped. How strange, she thought, that the man she loved was now talking about love itself, yet not knowing her secret. Studio Mr. Lee. In poetry, love is never simple. It's often quiet, forbidden, hidden between words. Studio narrator, softly. His eyes moved slowly across the class, and for a moment, they landed on Jae-woo. Just 1 second. But it was enough. Her breath caught in her throat. Studio Jae-woo, whispering to herself. Does he know? Studio narrator. Her friend, Yoon-seok, sitting next to her, nudged her arm. You okay? You look red. She smiled awkwardly, hiding her notebook. On its page, she had written one sentence. I think I'm falling in love with my teacher. Broken heart. Musical notes, soft background hum, wind through blossoms. Studio narrator. Days passed. Their eyes kept meeting, by accident or by fate, in hallways, in the library on rainy afternoons. Each time, a spark she couldn't control grew inside her. But love is never safe, especially this kind. One evening, Jaiwoo stayed late in class, finishing her assignment. The campus was quiet, the sunset melting through the glass. She thought she was alone until she heard his voice behind her. Studio Mr. Lee. You're still here, Miss Han. Studio narrator. Her heart jumped. She turned, trying to hide her nervous smile. Yes, sir. I was just finishing my essay. He walked closer, standing just a few steps away. The room suddenly felt smaller. You're one of the few students who really understand emotion, he said softly. Your writing, it feels honest. Studio narrator. Jaiwoo's hands trembled slightly. No one had ever said words that touched her like that before. Studio Jaiwoo, softly. Thank you, sir. I just write what I feel. Studio Mr. Lee. That's good. Writers who feel deeply often live painfully, but beautifully. Studio narrator. Their eyes met again, not as teacher and student, but as two souls who somehow understood each other. Silence filled the room. Outside, cherry blossoms fluttered past the window. Cherry blossom. Studio narrator, whisper. That silence said everything. And though no words were spoken, a line had been crossed, quietly, dangerously. Musical notes, music fades slowly, piano and soft wind. Studio narrator. In that moment, Jaiwoo realized something she couldn't take back. She didn't just admire him. She loved him. And love was about to change everything. Studio outro. If this chapter made your heart beat a little faster, don't forget to subscribe. Chapter 3 is coming next, The Secret Between Hearts, where feelings can no longer be hidden and every heartbeat becomes a whisper of danger. Growing heart. Studio narrator. The following weeks passed like a dream Jaiwoo couldn't wake from. Every morning she told herself, he's my teacher, that's all. But every time she saw him smile, the lie fell apart. In class, she tried not to stare, yet her eyes always found him. Sometimes, he'd pause during his lecture, glance at her, and continue as if nothing happened. But something was happening. Something both of them could feel, but couldn't speak. Studio narrator. After class, Jaiwoo often lingered behind, pretending to organize her notes. Mr. Lee would stay too, marking papers at his desk. The silence between them grew heavier each day. Not awkward, but electric. Studio Mr. Lee, gently. You seem distracted lately, Miss Han. Is everything all right? Studio Jaiwoo. Yes, sir, just tired. Studio narrator. She lied. Her heart wasn't tired, it was alive, beating for him alone. He smiled faintly. Don't let your thoughts wander too far. Focus can save you. And love, she almost asked aloud. Can love save me too? But she didn't. She just nodded, hiding the storm inside her chest. Musical notes, soft thunder sound, distant rain starts again. Studio narrator. That evening, as she left the library, rain began to fall once more, just like the day they met. She forgot her umbrella, running across the courtyard. Then, a familiar voice called out. Studio Mr. Lee. Jaiwoo. Studio narrator. He ran toward her, holding his umbrella over them both. Raindrops slid down his glasses. She could see her reflection in them. They stood close, too close. Studio Mr. Lee, softly. You'll catch a cold. Studio Jaiwoo, quietly. I don't mind the rain. Studio narrator. Their eyes met. Lightning flashed across the sky, like the spark between them. Neither of them moved. Studio Mr. Lee. This is dangerous. Studio Jaiwoo. I know. Studio narrator. The rain grew heavier, but neither stepped away. In that moment, the world outside disappeared. Only their breathing, only their hearts. Studio narrator, soft tone. He reached out, brushing a raindrop from her cheek. A small gesture, but enough to break every rule they lived by. Studio Mr. Lee. You should go home. Studio Jaiwoo. Will you be there tomorrow? Studio Mr. Lee. Always. Musical notes. Rain fades into soft music, emotional piano. Studio narrator. That night, Jaiwoo couldn't sleep. She replayed every word, every look, every heartbeat. She knew what they shared was forbidden. But her heart no longer cared about permission. Studio narrator. And somewhere, in his small apartment filled with books and silence, Mr. Lee sat by the window, watching the rain. He told himself, she's my student, this can't happen. But deep inside, he already knew. It had happened. Studio narrator, soft whisper. Two hearts had fallen in love, quietly, recklessly, beautifully. And in that silence, a secret was born. Cherry blossom. Studio outro. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. Next time in Chapter 4, the scandal, love turns into whispers and whispers turn into danger. Broken heart. Studio narrator. The secret between Jaiwoo and Mr. Lee had grown heavier with every heartbeat. In class, they spoke like strangers. But in the quiet hallways, their eyes still met, and that was enough to set the world on fire. Studio narrator. Every glance, every smile, every word whispered beneath the sound of rain. It was all theirs. Until one day, someone saw them. Studio sound FX, door creaks open. Studio narrator. Late one evening, Jaiwoo visited Mr. Lee's office to return a book he had lent her. They talked longer than they should have. He laughed. She hadn't seen him laugh like that before. For a moment, he looked younger, freer. Then the door opened. Studio voice, female, sharp. Mr. Lee. Studio narrator. It was Mrs. Kang, the head teacher. Her eyes moved between them, between the man standing too close and the girl blushing in front of him. The silence said everything. Studio Mrs. Kang. It's late. Students shouldn't be here after hours. Studio narrator. Jaiwoo tried to speak, but her voice trembled. I was just returning a book, ma'am. Studio Mrs. Kang. Go home. Studio narrator. The next morning, the air in school felt colder. Whispers filled the hallways. Someone had seen them together. Someone had told. Studio Yoonseok, angry. Jaiwoo, tell me it's not true. You and him. Studio Jaiwoo, quietly. It's not what you think. Studio narrator. But it was, and Yoonseok's broken voice said more than anger ever could. Studio narrator. By noon, rumors had spread to every corner of Hanseong University. Students whispered in corridors. Teachers exchanged looks. And Mr. Lee sat alone in his office, staring at the rain falling outside. Studio Mr. Lee, to himself. I should have stopped this before it began. Studio narrator. But how do you stop something that feels more real than the world itself? Musical notes. Music deepens emotional strings. Studio narrator. Later that evening, Jaiwoo was called to the principal's office. Mrs. Kang sat behind her desk, serious and cold. Studio Mrs. Kang. Han Jaiwoo, there are rumors about your relationship with Professor Lee. Is there anything you'd like to confess? Studio Jaiwoo. No, ma'am, it's not true. Studio narrator. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. Studio Mrs. Kang. Rumors destroy careers, Miss Han. And sometimes lives. Studio narrator. When Jaiwoo left the office, she saw Mr. Lee waiting in the hallway. Their eyes met, tired, scared, but full of love. Studio Mr. Lee, whispering. I'm sorry, I'll fix this. Studio Jaiwoo, shaking her head. Please don't say anything, I can take it. Studio narrator. But love doesn't protect, it exposes. And the more they tried to hide it, the louder the world became. Studio narrator, softly. That night, Jaiwoo walked home alone through the rain. She looked up at the cherry blossoms falling under the streetlights, the same place where it all began. Her tears mixed with the rain. Studio Jaiwoo, whisper. If loving him is wrong, then why does it feel so right? Studio narrator. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee packed his briefcase in silence. He knew what was coming. Tomorrow, everything would change. Musical notes, soft closing music, slow piano and rain. Studio narrator. When love breaks the rules, the world punishes the hearts that dared to feel. And yet, even as rumors spread like storm clouds over Seoul, two hearts still beat together beneath the cherry blossoms. Cherry blossom. Studio outro. If your heart feels the weight of this love, click subscribe. The final chapter is coming. Chapter 5, The Last Cherry Blossom. The ending will break you or heal you. Broken Cherry. Studio narrator. Spring returned to Seoul. The cherry blossoms were blooming again, painting the city in soft pink and white. For everyone else, it was a new beginning. But for Jaiwoo and Mr. Lee, it was the season of goodbye. Studio narrator. After the scandal, Mr. Lee had been suspended. Whispers had faded, but the scars they left never did. He had decided to resign and leave Hanseong University. No one knew where he was going. Studio narrator. On the morning of his departure, Jaiwoo found herself walking toward the same courtyard where it had all begun, under the cherry trees that once hid their secret smiles. Studio sound FX, gentle breeze, footsteps, faint birdsong. Studio narrator. She saw him standing there, suitcase in hand, looking up at the blossoms drifting down. He looked peaceful, yet broken, like someone trying to memorize a dream before waking up. Studio Jaiwoo, softly. Mr. Lee. Studio narrator. He turned around slowly. For a moment, the world went silent, just two souls meeting one last time. Studio Mr. Lee. Jaiwoo, you shouldn't have come. Studio Jaiwoo. I had to, you didn't say goodbye. Studio narrator. He smiled sadly. Goodbyes make things harder. Studio Jaiwoo. So you were just going to disappear. Studio narrator. He sighed, looking down. If I stay, you'll never be free. They'll never let you forget. I can't let that happen to you. Studio Jaiwoo. I don't care what they say, I just... Studio narrator. Her voice cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. He reached out, wiping them gently away, the same way he once brushed raindrops from her face. Studio Mr. Lee. Jaiwoo, you made me remember what it means to feel alive. But some loves exist only to teach us, not to stay. Studio narrator. The cherry blossoms fell between them, white petals landing on his dark coat. The air smelled like spring and heartbreak. Studio Jaiwoo. Then let me say it just once. I love you. Studio narrator. Her voice trembled, but it carried through the wind like music. Studio Mr. Lee, quietly. I love you too. Studio narrator. No more words were needed. He stepped closer, resting his forehead against hers. A tear rolled down his cheek, and she could feel his heartbeat, slow, steady, breaking. Studio narrator. Then, like a dream fading with the dawn, he stepped back. He turned, walked away down the path lined with cherry trees, and never looked back. Studio sound FX, distant footsteps, wind blowing through petals. Studio narrator. Jaiwoo stood there until the blossoms stopped falling. Her tears dried, her lips whispering to the wind. If love is meant to return, I'll meet you again beneath these blossoms. Musical notes, music swells, piano, soft strings, wind chimes. Studio narrator. Years later, when spring returned again, Jaiwoo was no longer a student. She had become a teacher, Standing before a classroom, her heart calm, her smile gentle. And every time cherry blossoms fell outside the window, she remembered him. Cherry blossom. Studio narrator, softly. Because some loves never end. They just live quietly, in memories, in rain, in blossoms that fall and rise again. Studio outro. Thank you for listening to The Student Who Fell in Love with Her Teacher. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with someone who believes in love that never fades. Sparkling Heart. Studio narrator. 2 years passed since Mr. Lee left Hanseong University. The world had changed, and so had Jaiwoo. She was no longer the shy girl who used to hide behind her umbrella. Now she stood in front of her own class, Miss Han, the youngest literature teacher in the school. Studio narrator. Her students loved her gentle voice, the way she spoke of poetry and rain, and how her eyes seemed to hold a secret story no one could ever guess. Studio narrator. Every spring, the cherry trees outside her window bloomed like memories. And sometimes, when petals touched the glass, she smiled softly, as if someone far away could see her smile too. Studio student, playfully. Miss Han, why do you always talk about rain and love? Studio Jaiwoo, smiling. Because both remind us that even after storms, flowers still grow. Studio narrator. Her heart had healed slowly, quietly. But deep inside, she knew part of it still waited beneath those blossoms. Studio narrator. That afternoon, as she packed her books, she noticed something strange. A new professor had joined the faculty, someone assigned to the literature department. The name on the notice board made her freeze. Studio narrator, whisper. Lee Min-ho. Studio sound FX, heartbeat, petals falling. Studio narrator. Her hands trembled. Could it be him? Or just someone with the same name? Her heart began to race like it hadn't in years. Musical notes, music builds, soft strings, rising hope. Studio narrator. The next morning, she arrived early. The sun was shining through the cherry trees. And at the far end of the courtyard, a man stood, looking up at the blossoms. Studio narrator. Same calm posture. Same dark coat. And when he turned, the same eyes. Studio Jaiwoo, whisper. Mr. Lee. Studio narrator. Time stopped again. Just like the first day they met, under falling petals, between silence and breath. Studio Mr. Lee, softly. It's been a long time, Miss Han. Studio narrator. He smiled gently. No rain this time, only light. Cherry blossom. Episode 7, The Letter Under the Cherry Tree. Musical notes, warm nostalgic melody, acoustic guitar plus soft piano. Studio narrator. The reunion was brief. They talked like old friends, careful with words, but the air between them still hummed with the same invisible current. Studio Mr. Lee. I came back to Seoul a few months ago. I wasn't sure if I should see you. Studio Jaiwoo. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Studio narrator. They walked slowly through the courtyard, where petals covered the ground like snow. Neither spoke of the past. They didn't need to. It lived in every step they took. Studio narrator. At the base of one cherry tree, Jaiwoo noticed something half buried in the soil. An old, weathered envelope. She bent down, brushed off the dust. Her name was written on it. Studio Jaiwoo, softly. My name. Studio narrator. He looked surprised. I left that here before I went away. I didn't think it would still be here. Studio narrator. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a simple letter, faded with time. Studio Mr. Lee, narrating. Jaiwoo. If someday you find this, it means you kept walking forward. Don't let this love become a cage. Let it be your wings. When the blossoms bloom again, know that somewhere I'll be wishing you peace. Studio narrator. Tears fell silently onto the paper. She looked up at him, older, gentler, smiling. Studio Jaiwoo. I did keep walking, but the path always led back here. Studio narrator. He took a step closer. Then maybe it's time for a new beginning. Musical notes, music swells, piano and strings rising like wind through petals. Studio narrator. And as the last blossoms of the season danced around them, two souls, once torn apart by time and fear, finally stood together again. Studio narrator, softly. Not forbidden. Not secret. Just love, pure, quiet, and reborn beneath the cherry tree. Cherry blossom. Studio outro. Thank you for listening to this love that waited for spring to return. Subscribe and stay tuned. New stories bloom every week. Right here where hearts speak louder than words. Revolving studio narrator. Days passed after their reunion. Each morning, Jaiwoo would find herself walking past the same cherry tree. The one where she found the letter. And every time, she would see him there, Mr. Lee, reading under the blossoms just as calm as before. Studio narrator. It felt unreal, as if life had given her a second chance. Not to rewrite the past, but to live it differently. Studio Mr. Lee, smiling. You still love poetry, I see. Studio Jaiwoo, soft laugh. I never stopped. You're the one who taught me how to love words. Studio narrator. They often met after classes, sharing coffee in the quiet campus garden. Their conversations were simple, books, rain, life. But beneath every word, there was something deeper. Studio narrator. Sometimes, silence spoke louder than anything. When their eyes met, the world still disappeared for a moment. Not with fear now, but with peace. Studio Mr. Lee. I used to think what we felt was wrong. Studio Jaiwoo. And now? Studio Mr. Lee. Now I think it was just too early. Studio narrator. She smiled. The past no longer hurt. It had turned into something gentle, like the soft petals floating on water. Studio narrator. But love, even when reborn, carries the memory of its scars. One evening, as they were walking out of the school gates, they heard someone whisper behind them. Studio voice, female student quietly. Isn't that Miss Han, with Professor Lee? Studio narrator. Jaiwoo froze for a second. The echoes of old rumors came rushing back. But Mr. Lee just looked at her calmly and said, Studio Mr. Lee. Let them talk. We're not hiding anymore. Studio narrator. And for the first time, she believed him. Musical notes. Music shifts to warmer tones. Piano and violin blend. Studio narrator. The next morning, Jaiwoo stood before her students, teaching about love poems. She read aloud one of her own lines, quietly but confidently. Studio Jaiwoo, reading. Love doesn't fade in silence. It waits for courage to return. Studio narrator. Outside, Mr. Lee stood near the window, listening with a soft smile. The petals were falling again. And this time they weren't saying goodbye. Cherry blossom. Musical notes. Soft outro music rises. Studio narrator. When two hearts have been through storms and still choose each other, that's no longer a mistake. It's destiny, patient, gentle, and forever reborn. Studio outro. If this episode warmed your heart, hit that subscribe button and stay with us. Next episode, The Promise of Tomorrow. Because love always finds a way back. Revolving hearts. Cherry Blossom final episode, The Promise of Tomorrow. Musical notes, slow emotional piano, soft wind, cherry blossoms falling. Studio narrator. Spring had returned once more to Seoul. It had been 3 months since Jaiwoo and Mr. Lee reunited. And for the first time in years, both of them felt peace. Studio narrator. They didn't rush love anymore. No stolen moments, no secrets. Just quiet mornings with coffee, laughter in the halls, and walks under the trees that had witnessed everything. Studio narrator. But destiny, as always, had one more test. Studio Sound FX. Soft knock on a door, paper unfolding. Studio narrator. One evening, Mr. Lee received a letter. It was from an old university in London. An offer to teach literature abroad. A dream he had once buried beneath guilt and memory. Studio Jaiwoo. So, you're leaving again. Studio Mr. Lee, gently. They offered me a position I can't refuse. It's what I always wanted, before you. Studio narrator. Silence filled the room. The sound of the rain outside echoed the ache inside their hearts. Studio Jaiwoo. Before me, and after me too, right? Studio Mr. Lee, shaking his head. No, you're not my past, Jaiwoo. You're the reason I can dream again. Studio narrator. He stepped closer, holding her hands tightly. But I can't ask you to wait for me again. Studio Jaiwoo teary. I waited once, I can wait again. But not because I have to, because I want to. Studio narrator. She smiled through her tears. This time, love wasn't desperate, it was brave. Musical notes, soft strings join, music turns brighter. Studio narrator. A week later, they stood together at the airport. No promises of forever. No dramatic goodbye. Just two souls who finally understood love's quiet truth. Studio Mr. Lee. When the cherry blossoms bloom again. Look up at the sky, Jaiwoo. Wherever I am, I'll be looking too. Studio Jaiwoo, whisper. And I'll whisper your name to the wind. Studio narrator. He smiled, kissed her forehead gently, and walked toward the gate. Not away from her this time, but toward the future she had helped him find. Studio narrator. As he disappeared into the crowd, Jaiwoo whispered softly. Goodbye, my teacher, my love. Musical notes, music swells, piano plus violin, emotional climax. Studio narrator. Months passed. Spring came again. Jaiwoo stood under the cherry tree, where everything had begun. The petals danced in the air, shining like snow in the sunlight. Studio narrator. She closed her eyes, smiled, and whispered. We kept our promise. Studio narrator, softly. Because true love doesn't always mean staying together. Sometimes, it means giving each other the wings to fly. And the heart to return. Musical notes. Final music fades into soft wind and chime sounds. Studio outro, gentle voice. Thank you for following this journey of love, courage, and time. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more tailies where love lives beyond endings. Sparkling heart. Cherry blossom, the end cherry blossom.